Send Help is the latest movie to come out this January, putting a little cherry on top for this month as it's been a really, really good month for movies, especially horror. And this movie is directed by the one and only Sam Raimi, and it is written by Damien Shannon and Mark Swift. And if you haven't heard of those two, they have most famously written Freddy vs. Jason and the Friday the 13th remake, which I am both huge fans of. And this script is definitely one of the best parts of this movie. It's clever, it's insanely funny, it's brutal at times, and Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien just give fantastic performances. So in this movie, we have Linda Little, played by Rachel McAdams, who is a part of this next-gen huge corporate company, and she is a part of the strategy and planning department. And her boss is played by Dylan O'Brien, Bradley Preston. And so the first 20 minutes or so takes place in this workspace, and Linda Little is not liked very much, not only by the new CEO, Bradley, but by her coworkers, by the people around her and the cubicles around her. She is kind of a slob. You know, she's bringing tuna fish sandwiches to work with her, stuffing them in the drawer, the way she eats it. And they did a good job because she is just that in the first part of this movie. But when Bradley wants to take Linda on a work trip to Hong Kong, their plane crashes and they end up being the only survivors stranded on this deserted island. And on this island, they have to get over their past. They have to move on, let go, and work together to survive. Now, starting with Rachel McAdams, I thought she was amazing in this movie as Linda Little from Strategy and Planning. I love that tagline, by the way, on the poster. It's hilarious. But she did a great job. With her starting out as this slob, this unappealing, unattractive person, she turns into someone completely different when she gets on this island. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that she is a huge fan of the TV show Survivor, which I thought was great. I love that little addition because I saw this with my dad and we are both huge fans of the show, have since the beginning for the past 20 years, 25 years. And it was just awesome to kind of see that incorporated because it really did help her out when she got to this island. Immediately after the crash, Dylan O'Brien's character is hurt. Something happened with his leg. He didn't break a bone or anything, but he got severely injured, so he can't walk for the first couple weeks. So he's pretty much just bedridden, and right away, Linda Little starts building shelter, finding water, getting food, making a fire, all the essentials that you need to get on Survivor. She's already practiced, so she knows all of this. So she kind of just gets right to work. She basically becomes a warrior once she arrives on this island. And it was cool seeing her do that at first, and it only just gets crazier and crazier. The things that she does, basically the craftsmanship that she has. She starts making hats out of leaves from the jungle, and she makes an unbelievable camp. She has chairs, she has a little table, she makes little cups with like her name etched in on the side, and at one point she even somehow made sushi out of this fish that she caught, and she's serving it up with all this fruit, and it looks gourmet. It's on this leaf, and it's just it's hilarious. And you can tell almost right away that this is where she thrives. She is thriving on this island, knowing how to do everything, how to survive, fending for herself, and she's really having a good time. It seems like she's really enjoying it. But as the movie progresses and goes on, there is a lot of stuff that you kind of guess, that you kind of can figure out. And she was already kind of a weirdo, kind of just comes off as a desperate, lonely lady in the first parts, and that only kind of just amplifies when she gets on this island as time goes on. She doesn't want to leave. The manipulation starts happening between her and Bradley. She's lying to Bradley about parts of the island that she's explored, saying, don't go there, but we all know why she's saying that. She eventually becomes a little psychotic and extremely obsessed with this island and the idea of staying on there for the rest of her life. On the other hand, Bradley wants to leave this island, right? He is a new CEO of this company. He's rich. He's a douchebag. He does not want to be on this island. He wants to get back to his private jets, his luxury, just that whole life that he lives. So he cannot stand being on this island any longer than he has to. And Linda is the last person probably on Earth that he would want to be stranded on this island with alone. And he makes that very clear multiple times, not only just from the first scene when he straight up tells her to her face that nobody likes her, that she's disgusting. At first, he kind of continues to keep that up, putting her down and just telling her, even on this island, I'm still your boss. And she's like, nah, we're not in this workspace anymore. We're not in the office. And with Bradley essentially just being a trust fund baby, he is not acclimated to survive on this island. So he tries to for a little bit. He tries to go off on his own and build his own shelter, get his own food. At one point, he eats this little tiny beetle that he sees on this rock, and it's it's disgusting. He spits it out, but he doesn't know how to survive, so he becomes desperate and doing whatever it takes to pretty much just get back into Linda's good graces and get all of her food, because like I said, she has this whole spread going: sushi, fruit, fish, water, I mean, whatever you can name it, she's got it all. And just all the stuff, the acting that Dylan O'Brien does in this, the desperation that he eventually has while still kind of being that douchebag, it is so funny. So it does sort of become this little cat and mouse game. Can they trust each other? Bradley starts picking up on certain things that he should have probably picked up on a long time ago about this island, about what she's kind of keeping a secret. And just the way these two play off each other, even though they don't like each other, the chemistry that they have on screen is still pretty amazing, because it's interesting, the mind games that they're playing with each other, and it just only gets worse, and it's very psychological. And by the end, it comes to a head, and there's also a small twist at the end, a little something that you probably could have guessed. I kind of guessed something similar to this at the very beginning, or more so when they first crashed on this island. But when this reveal happens and, you know, all that animosity comes to a head, it's just so fun to watch. And the way it was filmed, I had a smile on my face pretty much this whole movie, just grinning at how insane this movie is, and the dark humor really does hit. It is done very well. It almost comes to a point where it's just satirical, and it's kind of borderline slapstick, maybe. I've heard a lot of people compare it to Evil Dead 2. That's like one of the only Evil Deads I'm not a fan of. It kind of was borderlining on that, but I would say it's just more satirical, and this dark humor mixed in with the horror elements, mixed in with blood and all this craziness. And with Sam Raimi, you expect a certain level of horror, right? You expect that signature style that he has. Even if it's something like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, there's still that one scene, there's still that small element that he has that you can point out that that's Sam Raimi, right? Of course, a lot of that stems from The Evil Dead, and there's one scene in this film that reminds you of that 100%, but most of this film is just dark comedy, psychological. And I don't know if I'm crazy, but I feel like there was also a small little Spider-Man reference when they go into this cave during a huge storm. It was very quick, but it had to have been a reference to Spider-Man. I don't see how it couldn't have been. So there's just little stuff like that going on, but even just the way he filmed this movie too, there's certain shots of close-ups on these characters, and there's certain angles that kind of just stand out as well to something that only Sam Raimi would have in his movies, and just adding to a certain level of uncomfortableness. And with the blood in this film, there's not a lot of it, but there are a couple scenes, one involving a boar that is strangely hilarious. It's over the top, and it just keeps going and going and going, and you're just sitting there just laughing at how absurd this scene is. But it's done perfectly, and it wouldn't be able to be that without Sam Raimi. And there's another scene where the camera is just focused on Dylan O'Brien's face. He seems to be struggling. Tears are coming out of his eyes. I kind of knew what was going on there from the trailer, but you think that Linda Little is about to do this certain thing, and when you think that she's doing it, it is happening off screen. So you're hearing certain things, certain sound effects, and it is terrifying, especially if you are a dude. You're going to be squirming around in your seat just like, no, please, no, there's no way she's doing this. And so there is a lot of effective scenes that work like that, and they all pretty much work. There is really, I don't know if there's anything bad about this movie. It does kind of not necessarily drag towards the end, but it does lose just a little bit of steam, maybe for like 10-15 minutes or so, but then it picks back up at the end in this last absurd scene between the two. So yeah, this movie is an absolute banger. I think Sam Raimi is probably backed. I hope he keeps doing more. I have heard that he might be interested in doing a superhero movie again if the character is right, if the script is right. So that would be awesome. I also forgot to mention one of the best parts about Dylan O'Brien's character Bradley was his laugh. It's extremely annoying, but at the same time, it's funny. It sounds pretty much exactly like Chow from The Hangover. And yeah, every time he did that laugh on screen, I was dead. A lot of the people in the theater were laughing. It was great. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this film. I had a great time with it. Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams are great together. It's a blast. It's hilarious. Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien are great on screen together, even if they're not getting along pretty much for most of the movie. The script is sharp, and of course, Sam Raimi killed it, but what do you expect? But I would definitely recommend going to see this movie. It is such a great time. And I will give this movie a solid 8 out of 10, but as always, I appreciate you guys for watching. My name is Zach. Later.